What neurology and neuroscience, the reason it's becoming a bit of a fad now, or like the buzz thing.
Yeah, everyone's into
that
it now.
everybody's trying to find out about, or if they're not trying to
Neuroplasticity
find
is
out
the
about
word
it.
of the moment.
Yeah, they're if they're not trying to find out about it now, they're about to be trying to find out about it,
Yeah.
and they don't realize it yet. First of all, technology, and second of all, data. So, in terms of science, nobody really goes around trying to find stuff unless they think they have a reason to try and find it out. So, when most people don't have anything wrong with their brains, or if there's not enough variation in people's brains, then there's nothing new to discover. So that could be done in two ways. So the more people you get, the more variation you're likely to have in any aspect of the brain. So whether it's your language abilities, or just something like IQ or intelligence, or your ability to perform certain tasks, your brain's ability to help you move, having more people means there's more data to collect. So that's going to be really interesting. And then secondly, when things go wrong, that's the first time where people start to go, oh, let's take a look at this. Let's find out what's happening here.
Yeah.
And the 20th century for brains was this huge kind of spike in both of those things. We were able to collect huge amounts of data for a wide range of problems, and one of those things was war and wars, like the
coming to the rescue again. Typical war, always coming along.
For violence. First World War in particular, but kind of once machine guns were a thing, you start to get large numbers of people getting shot in the head, and one of the things that happens is then, when people get shot in similar areas, then they start to have damage in similar parts of the brain, and then you can start to go, this is where things are similar, this is where things are different, and that kind of sparks, we think this is what those parts of the brain are for. And this kind of, a lot of science gets done in this way. Things will happen by accident, like the classic psychology. The textbook sort of psychology example was the guy Phineas Gage, who...
I was just going to bring him up.
1848. I know the year because it's been in so many books, and I'm not an academic by any stretch, but Phineas Gage is the guy who had a railroad spike blowing through his
dynamite?
skull.
Yeah,
dynamite planting railroad tracks, planting railroad tracks.
Hope they grow.
Laying railroad tracks using dynamite, and whatever happened, one of the spikes just went right through his skull, and I believe it was a part of his frontal cortex that it went through, and suddenly it changed his whole personality, and he's one of the big case studies.
Yeah.
And similarly, HM, the patient HM, who has a full name but I don't know it, went in for surgery and then suddenly didn't have a memory after. He wasn't able to create new memories, and that becomes, this is an interesting study. But again, in the First World War, and with a lot of those subsequent wars, you not only get the individual case study, but you get these huge amounts of data that people can start going, actually, even though we don't have to have any extra technology, we can see these people had the same thing happen, these people had different things happen, and this was, here's the similarities and differences in the results. And then the second thing that happened was technology started to improve. So I really love the stories of how they started trying to figure things out. So in the early days when it was psychology, I don't know who it was. Part of me wants to say William James, but I actually don't know if it was him. So, when they were trying to measure how fast neurons can react, they had this idea of, if I squeeze your hand, and then you squeeze back as soon as you feel me squeeze your hand, then what happens is we'll get an idea of how fast the electrical impulse takes to go up to your brain and then back down. Because when I squeeze your hand, you'll get the sensory signal, and then it goes all the way up to your brain, and then your brain will say, "Oh, great, let's send a motor command." So if I time how long it takes you to squeeze back, then we know that we've got double the time of an electrical signal. But the problem is they didn't have a stopwatch that could measure it very accurately.
Yeah.
So what they ended up doing was they got a whole line of people. They got like 50 people standing in a line, all holding hands. The guy with the stopwatch would squeeze and start the stopwatch, and he'd be on roller skates. He'd roller skate his way all the way down to the end of the line and rejoin. And when he felt the other squeeze, he would stop the stopwatch. And then, obviously, the bigger the number, the more accurate the data. I cannot remember where I heard that story, but I really hope that
just
the roller skates
that is brilliant.
True.
Yeah, I really hope that's true.
But that's kind of technology started there, and then it was when we started getting ways to scan the brain. We were able to do it, but we couldn't scan it very well, and so all these rumors started coming out of we only use 5% of our brains, or we only use 10% of our brains.
And after a certain age, you stop developing the ability to change it and all that.
And really, all it was is the technology available wasn't able to measure more than that. It just wasn't fast enough to measure all the other activity that was going on. So, as technology develops, we're able to measure more things, we're able to do more things. So that's kind of why now we're at the point where we've been measuring all the physical stuff for a very long time. That has a lot of data available to it, so scientifically that's really valuable. But then the problem is, if you just follow the science, you're not going to be the best. If you try to train yourself the way that is tried and tested and proven 100%, this is how it works, you're never going to be the guy who beats everybody unless you're the perfect specimen of that specific type.
That pyramid will always have a flat top, because everybody will train themselves according to the letter.
Everybody trains it that way, and so there will be a certain percentage that'll get that. What happens though is then you get this whole really fun layer on top, which some people hate and some people love. Like on one side of it, at the very top, you've got the people that just take an idea and decide this is the way forward. Like, I've got this special rock that's a magic crystal that does this specific thing. Or maybe at some point, I think training my eyes might be really good. I'll train my eyes as if the muscles in my eyes work the same as the muscles in my biceps. And I'm just going to run with that, even though I've got no scientific proof or evidence. So there's people like that on the top. And then what happens is some of these guys start winning medals in competitions or developing new technologies and things like that. And then people go, let's find out if any of this was actually worth it. So maybe the rock and the magic crystal, maybe we're not able to find anything, so we go, that's probably not a thing. And who has the choice? Well, he can either say, okay, I'll look for another thing, or he can go, no, you're wrong, magic crystal. This is my crystal. This is my crystal. This is what I'm going to do. But maybe then with the eye exercises, somebody goes, actually, this kind of... Maybe we don't have it conclusively proved yet, but we think there's something here, and then that pyramid point where it's flat starts to rise up in that direction. Yeah. People who do the vision training in that way start to get a little bit better, and then there's more research about it, so then it starts to branch into, well, what about this? What about this? What about this? Yeah. More people trying means more people testing. And then we get to find out more about it, and I think that's kind of where we're at with neuroscience. Is some people were doing the weird and crazy stuff up at the top, and neuroscience was just catching up to a bit that goes, hang on, a lot of that stuff might be interesting to look at, and some of it we'll find out is really good, and some of it we'll find out was a terrible idea, and hopefully we'll leave it behind. We might not.
Magic crystal.